from Livepro, and it's entitled TechRX, Livepro and UMass Memorial Health's Prescription for Knowledge. Cute. That was good. I like that. We've got Clara Doan, who is a Senior Director, Patient Access Center, UMass Memorial Health. Peter Gellis, thank you, Gellis, Processing Improvement Manager for UMass Memorial Health. And Tyler Dixon, Senior VP, Customer Growth at Livepro. Take it away.
Thank you all. Thank you all for joining us today here. We're just going to have a candid conversation about knowledge management from Livepro and our partners here at UMass Memorial Health. So we'll go through it here. I'm just going to give you a little background on knowledge management, right? So Livepro has been around for 25 years. We've been in the space and specialized just in knowledge management. So a lot of this conversation out here today has been about AI, and AI is only as good as the knowledge that you provide to it. So having that single source of truth is really impactful. I think the UMass team can speak for that, and we'll get into that conversation about it. But it's all about prioritizing your knowledge, treating all knowledge as powerful as it can be, having those easily accessible but still governed permissions for your agents for the entire enterprise. That's the key to knowledge management, and then providing that to your outside areas as well, and the capability of AI. So I'll let our team here at UMass tell a little bit more about themselves and the company.
Hi, I'm Clara. I'm the Senior Director of the Patient Access Center here at UMass Memorial Health. So things like essentially, we are an enterprise-wide contact center. So things like you're the 1-800 number or 855 UMass MD comes through us, or if we're trying to schedule, we're a single point of contact to be able to provide care and scheduling and access to the institution.
I am Peter Gellis. I'm the Process Improvement Manager that oversees our implementation of Livepro. It has been incredibly helpful for us for that single source of truth that we were talking about. If we can look to the future a little bit, we can rely on that being accurate, being controlled, and being secured so that people don't accidentally change it and make it incorrect again.
Excellent. So let's get into
starting out,
the Q&A session knowledge management challenges were you facing? Talk about your all's journey with us as a partnership, and how that went. So starting out, what specific knowledge management challenges were you facing at UMass Health that led you to seek a solution in the knowledge management space, Livepro?
So unlike other industries, where we come from is probably even further behind. Within UMass, we started with one hospital or two hospitals, decades ago. And through time, we've acquired locations, hospitals, new service offerings. And now we have come to a place where our contact center, we've had a version of it for about 20, 25 years, but really having a fully developed contact center for probably about the last 3. So the information is changing. We work with doctors, we work with locations, and all that information is ever changing. So when we came to a place where we're finally democratizing access and our processes, one of the key elements was, can we keep up with the information that's being given to us or not? Sometimes we have something like COVID is a perfect example of, we had processes to just survive COVID. And then as COVID, as we stepped away from the initial push of COVID, we had to dial things back, and that meant process change. So we needed a tool that actually kept up with us, and then also for our staff when they're taking phone calls to be able to know at the fingertips what that change is, even though they may not read an email or get the memo, that they would use the same consistent process to actually get that information. So that's why our Livepro came in, was how do we get this? We had disparate, SharePoint, Teams, we had all these different pieces of information and just couldn't get to that information fast enough or consistent enough to actually deliver a consistent product, giving callers the information that they were seeking.
Awesome. And during that process, while you were venting out different providers like Livepro, what stood out about the Livepro software that kind of set you in that direction to be a partnership with us?
So I think going back to the talk desk conversation was we needed a good engaged partner. So I think out the gate, that was number one. We had vendors, and you'd be shocked. there's plenty of vendors here, but you guys all don't come in the same fit, flavor, and fit for us. And so just to have the consistent communication, honestly, out the gate took out half. There's always a delineation between the sales team and the implementation team. So having that integration with the both teams was great. So, and then of course the technology itself, did it look and feel right for us? We wanted to get into information within a few clicks, and how did the layout look like? Obviously maintenance. So my team or Peter's team maintains the solution. So is it something that we're not computer programmers, but can we maintain it? Can we keep up with the information, do it quickly, and have templates at the ready when we need to create, say, new pages or update? And I think the third part was around, essentially we are a safety net hospital. And so I think also selecting vendors for solutions, like we don't have umpteenth millions of dollars to spend. So understanding that KMS was a tool that we absolutely needed, and then the ability to essentially spend, like, what's the bang for our buck? And so KMS and having Livepro also fit in our buy box, if you will, of things that we can afford at a safety net hospital was also a key component in making sure that, like, we might have this tomorrow or we have to have this today, but can we sustain it for the future was really another major piece, just beyond the technology that you all provided.
Perfect. That's awesome to hear. Next question. How did Livepro specifically address your organization's knowledge sharing needs across departments and locations?
Yep. So spoke a little bit about it, but really the big pieces were having consistent processes that we can replicate, having trainings that even after the fact, how do we have announcements? How do we let people know that this is a new process, or this process, certain things were being taken away? Like, how do we alert staff so that they are aware in a place that's consistent and accessible, that's not SharePoint or, in a Teams chat?
Exactly. All right, now let's get into the good stuff about the implementation side of things. Peter, I think you're going to handle this a little bit, but what was the implementation process like? How did that flow throughout the process?
So it was a learning process. We did some serious planning ahead of time, and it's the old look before you leap. But keep in mind that you're going to learn a lot along the way. One thing I liked about Livepro was how easy it was to create those templates that Clara mentioned, and then to maintain and edit them. So the template that we have now is a little bit different from what it was at the beginning of our implementation, because we iterated, we learned, and now it's a process to go back and maybe clean up the old ones and bring them up to modern spec. We didn't know what we didn't know at first, but now we do, and it's time to move forward.
Yeah, I mean, having that single source of truth it's still living and breathing, right? So it's always changing every single day. You have to update it and make sure it's accurate. What unexpected hurdles did you find and overcome during that onboarding process?
There were a few. A lot of it was the source information. What we had been relying on as what we thought was accurate information in content review was, oh, that's not right. Okay. Well, can we make it right now? So there was a fair amount of that you can only get through the thorough review that a KMS implementation requires.
How did the authoring and onboarding process adapt with new teams throughout the different process?
We divided our onboarding and implementation up like team by team, and each team handles a different set of specialties and subspecialties within the system. And it adapted because each specialty has some different requirements. Cardiology, for example, doesn't necessarily need all of the stuff that primary care needs, and vice versa. So we had to make sure that we are staying true to our overall look and feel so that anybody can take, frankly, any call, go to that clinic's page and see what they need to see, and everything is in the same spot. But there might be very different information on there and different types of information. So how do we work that? Yeah.
Awesome. And from probably the most influential piece of this is for the frontline staff, right? Because they're the ones in the tool every single day. So what has the feedback been from them? What has made their life easier? What have they enjoyed about Livepro?
Ease of use. number one, and probably number 1 through 5 on that one. Previously, we used a hodgepodge of Excel, of Teams, of SharePoint. A lot of teams had their own little job aids that they had that were, maybe they were approved by the organization, and maybe they weren't. And now we have one. So everybody is literally on the same page. And people have really appreciated that. Like, I just searched the thing that I'm looking for and it shows up, and now I can read it to the patient.
Awesome. I think we have next thing, but what is the feature that maybe has helped you all out the most from your agent's perspective or from your all's perspective? What is a feature that stands out that's praised on?
Mm-hmm. That right there. You guys call these rockets, they're decision trees. This has been, I think, the Epic system, the HR that we use, has a lot of built-in decision trees, but they work the way they work. And sometimes we needed a little bit different functionality. And the Livepro rockets give us that functionality. So we can click a button, we can ask a patient or a caller a question, and click the answer, and then it either gives you more questions or the answer. And this has been, I think, a bit of a game changer for us, and probably the most appreciated function.
Yeah, I think we've talked on it before, right? I mean, it's allowing the journey to go through what the customer is saying, right? So not all knowledge is the same, that you go through and you click thing and you have that answer and it doesn't peak and flow with this, but linking knowledge together and having that knowledge accessible. But also on the back end of that, you still have your permissions based on that. So if they're not skilled to take that call type, they won't have the information and knowledge on that call type. So having the freedom to have everything they need, but also not have other things that they don't need, right? Awesome.
Where
And
we're
then
looking
next
for is that
question,
integration. We're going to with telephony.
how has
and
Livepro
Epic,
knowledge management
having
solution
multiple,
integrated
even
with your other
websites of
existing
having multiple
systems and tech
sources of
stack?
truth. And
How do you use them together?
so currently, part of like the evaluation of KMS and actually just trying to get it to market in the contact center was, we're going to keep it, on its own so that we can just get this thing up and going. But really, with our tech stack, where we're looking for is that integration. We're going to, with telephony and Epic, and having multiple, and even websites of having multiple sources of truth, and be able to say, all right, now we can go full end to end in, under like one umbrella. But one of the key elements is like all the information that we've actually built into Livepro will be leveraged for, things like AI, have that call deflection. And regardless of how the patient or the caller wants to reach us, that Livepro is part of the future, regardless of where we're or the timing of where we're heading.
And you kind of talked it and hit it on there, but what is the future plans with Livepro? I know our customers are part of our roadmap, right? We hear from them and we build out our roadmap accordingly from that. So what have you heard from us that we're going to build, and what are your other features that you have maybe not used in the system yet that you plan to use in the future?
So I think the thing that's coming up front is, like we do for Google. So instead of clicking the rockets that you saw up there, being able to like type something in and then having a response that emulates Google, but with the content that we've built in our system that's exclusive, like it doesn't go to a website. So I think that's the first thing with our own staff that's going to be helpful. So they don't have to, especially when we have staff that's new, they don't have to know that every layout at every page to navigate themselves. They'll be able to just type it and receive the responses, and then use AI to say, hey, was that the pathway that person is supposed to go through? Did we end up in the place? Is there hallucinations? Like having that circle back is one of the key elements that, we're working through. And I think really the future is then leveraging the information that we know is correct, that we use every day, and then being able to have a fully digitized experience so that if patient starts online, they can call us, or if they start through call and then someday they, certain times they want to go through online, to be able to use this single source of truth and be able to use that along with Epic and other tools to be able to provide whatever they're looking for, to provide them with their answer.
Awesome. Anything else you all want to add about the partnership or the tool that you all can think of? And if not, we'll open up for questions after that.
Yeah, I'd say the other thing, I think one of the key things with UMass is they don't work in this contact center world. So a lot of the times we have to bring this information forward. So they're like, what's KMS? What's knowledge management? Like, can't you use XYZ? And one of the key things that I thought was really helpful that I honestly forgot about because it's been a while was having a sandbox. So you guys had a demo environment that we built out, one or two of those workflows. And so I actually had my boss go through, like, I'm going to give you a call and I'm going to say, here's all the, here's A, which happens like this. And then here's B, which would be Livepro. Can you get the answer? And honestly, it was like, hey, what's the address for this cardiology location? And specifically to a provider, because some providers we have on the 2nd floor and the 7th floor. So it's not just as simple as just an address. And that is what sold her, saying like, okay, now I get it. Like, I thought I could use SharePoint or I thought I could use an Excel document. However, like, to be able to get through all that information quickly, I see the value in having a user interface, or for our staff, a good interface so that they can not be bogged down by all the locations and all the clicks that they would have to do. So that, I think, that's what I was, obviously, finance is number one. How are we going to pay for it? It's always the first question. And then second to that, it's like, why do you need this? And so to get over that hump, the why do you need this, having that sandbox was crucial.
Awesome. Peter, anything you'd like to add or anything about implementation or training process? Good.
Yeah. So I think that's a great point. How'd we get here? I joined UMass Memorial just before we started the implementation process. I had been working in and out of knowledge management for a long time, and seeing the system, getting a quick demo before our official training, I thought like, oh, this is perfect. This, like, the I'm glowing about the rockets, but just that little decision tree with the branching logic and everything, and then the simplicity of how to author and edit and maintain it. This is going to work for us.
Awesome. Questions from the audience? I think we still have a couple more minutes, 3 or 4 more minutes. Anybody have any questions for myself or the UMass team? Yeah, the question was, you got all the information into Livepro, right? Documents, how do you prevent it from creating it in other places still, and not all just having it in Livepro as a single source?
So I think the biggest thing is, one, you can't stop that, right? The sticky notes continue. And, but really, before, people didn't want to click to these places, right? Or like, Livepro is such a good experience where it is easier for them to go to Livepro than to find that extra thing. So it's like when you come in the morning, you log in, you have X, and it's like, for you to find that document somewhere else is actually harder to find. So the behavior that we're trying to emulate is the easiest behavior that we've created.
Yeah, I think, from not only their experience, but other customers, no one gets up and gets excited to go to SharePoint to try to find a document. No one is searching there and finding it. Well, I'm not saying Livepro, you get excited about searching in Livepro, but having those results come back easier, having a confidence score on them, it really changes their perspective. I know we had a customer that came in and, asked how they utilize it and how it says, thank you. Finally, we got a tool that we can utilize. Like, we're actually utilizing that tool. So it does help them from day one. It's a quick and easy training process for the agents to get acclimated to the tool, and they start seeing instant success from that tool because it's an easy search and user interface, like they have mentioned. Other questions? Yeah, questions on importing. How easy was it to import?
Very, in a word. We spent a lot of time reformatting things, so we didn't just want to copy paste or like upload documents. We wanted to format it so that we would have consistent eye targets everywhere, so that like the same pieces of info would be in the same spot on the URL on the page. So we did a fair amount of like revamping and reworking, and while we're doing that, a lot of rewriting so that it was a lot more clear. But if you are looking for, like, sometimes you just need to upload a document, there's a import button, and there it is.
Yeah, I really think it depends what the journey is for the customer. Like UMass, they said they had to look at documents over and over again and try to make sure they were accurate and things. So we have customers that come in and say they have, thousands upon thousands of knowledge articles. When they actually look at it and look through it, half of those are outdated and don't need to be put into the system. So it really is like an internal check at that time. So depending on how accurate your knowledge is, it can go a lot faster process. If you need to go through, potentially rewrite it or recheck it, it might be a little longer process. But as Peter mentioned, we have ways to help those things out with AI and with uploading things into it almost instantly. So that way you can search it from day one from that process as well. So it's definitely meeting the customer where they need on their journey. But it's also, I think we've done this with you all, teaching you all best practices as well, because the garbage in, garbage out method is totally true.
Yeah, and actually a parting thought would be that they continue to grow with us as well. So like as we come up with new scenarios, or there's always something new, like some of the stuff, like you can't make this up. And it's like, I got this situation, and they've been with us to be able to say, here's the next thing with Livepro. And then we've been able to say, here's the next thing with UMass, and then be able to converge between the two. You know, I think that's where our relationship was strong at the beginning. It continues to be strong today. Obviously, we're here for that reason. And I don't think we're any special at all. But I think that's a huge component when it comes to vendor management, is that, you know, just because you start and you sign the contract, like, can this relationship sustain and maintain? And Livepro has done a really great job of pushing themselves on their front and being able to meet UMass where we're at, which sometimes is fast, sometimes it's slow.